Hello, my name's Joe Jelinski, and I'm here representing the Iowa City Science Booster Club here in Iowa City. So for week 2 of the camp, we're learning about the microscopic world. So we're looking at really tiny things, so things like bacteria or pieces of insects or pieces of flowers. So you should have either an already assembled or a not assembled Foldscope. So just in case that it's not assembled, we're going to go through the process because it can be a little tricky. So when you open up your Foldscope, you'll see a variety of things. So you'll have a sort of a fine scale Q-tip, some magnets, and you want to put your Q-tip off to the side. We'll need that later. You're going to have some magnets. So you're going to see 3 magnetic discs. 1, 2, put this down a little bit, and 3. And then you also have this little circle, which is going to be the lens. So this is the thing that the light is going to go through and it's going to magnify the images that we're going to be looking at. The other thing you'll look at is the instructions. So I'm going to put the instructions off to the side so I can reference it if I need it. The instructions are a little bit complicated, so that's why it's useful to have a video like this to go through everything. And then you're going to have a Ziploc bag with a variety of stickers. And so we'll have this plastic sheet, which we'll get into at the end, and some kind of circular stickers, and then just a fun sticker that you can put on your phone or something. Set that off to the side. The last thing you'll see is a variety of different organisms. So these are things that you can find in the world. And so you might take like a soil sample and make a slide of it and try to find some of these creatures in it. All right, so let's get started on looking at the microscopic world. So you're going to have this paper, it's actually a form of plastic, I think, sheet with all these things that need to be punched out. So we'll do that in turn. So go ahead and cut out all of the different things. So this will be setting the stage of the scope. And this will be a viewfinder. And then this will be holding the lenses of the scope. And then the final thing for building the scope is this section right here. So now this is the tricky section that you have to be kind of careful punching out because some of the paper is quite thin. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have all of these components. And we will get started with positioning the lenses and the magnets on this thing. So what you're first going to want to do is take one of your magnets, and I'm referencing it, and you want to slide the magnet on the top of this these red circle dots so that this is facing out and it's going to go in. You'll notice that there's these little white dots next to the edge of the circle. You want to match those white dots up with the little dots on the lens. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so this takes a little bit of doing. I've made about 10 of these, and these still give me a little bit of trouble. But when you're done, it should look like that. So they're tucked in the sides, and if you look at the back, you can see the back of the little plastic part. And that's step 1. Step 2 is putting on the second magnet, which is going to go right on top of this red box. And so you're going to want to put the black side facing down and then just push it into place. And then do the exact same thing where you're going to be tucking the corners into the side. And that should work fine. Good. So after that, you're going to want to fold this up like that. And then you're going to see you have these tabs, and you're going to want to tuck these tabs into the side. And then, so it should look like this when you're done. And one way to check to make sure you've done this right is try just turning this, and it should stick to it because it's a magnet. So if it doesn't stick, it means you have the magnet the opposite way. So you're gonna have to turn one of your magnets to fit, but it should just click into place. Now, for the next part, you're going to want to, and I always forget which direction to go. So you're gonna wanna fold this paper. So you can see that I have the yellow side facing me. And you're gonna see that there's all these little lines. So what you're gonna do then is fold the first line down, fold the second line down, fold the third line down, and then fold the fourth line up. So it'll get this sort of zigzag pattern. So it's down, 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 up. And then it should line up so it looks like this when it's snapped into place, and you kind of have this little pocket down there. Okay, so we're going to put that off to the side for now. Next, we're going to install, and I just realized that I'm missing a piece. We're going to install the sort of the camera frame or the background. So yeah, one thing, what I did is I pulled this out a little too strongly, and then one of these tabs fell off this one. So make sure when you pull it out, not to do what I did and rip it out too strongly. Just kind of gently go around the edge. So first thing you want to do is take out this middle part. You don't need this anymore. You can recycle that. And then you're going to see these little tabs here, and then some of them have arrows. So what you're going to want to do is fold this back. So you're going to be folding it towards the blue side. And then after you make that fold, you make one more fold, a tiny fold. And all of these folds, I should say, have a little perforated line so it can tell you exactly what to do. Now this part's kind of tricky. There's this little hole in the side, and you want to tuck it in. That. And so how you know you've done it right when you're done is you should see two arrows pointing at each other. So see how those two arrows are pointing at each other? So that means that it's in good shape. So now I'm just going to do that exact same thing for the other side. So fold back, and then fold back. So fold back that one, and then fold back this one again, and then tuck in. And there we go. So that other side hopefully has two arrows pointing next to it. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is mount this on the stage. So first we want to remove this, and you can recycle that. And you want to have both sides to be the orange and the yellowish side up like this. And so what you're going to do is you'll see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 slots right here. Here's 2, and here's the other 2. And what we're going to do is weave this into the slots. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So you go behind, over, and that's going to go down like that. So this is a little bit tricky because you kind of have to move the paper around. Just make sure to be gentle and try not to force anything. This paper does have a lot of give. I think it's coated in some sort of plastic, but still you want to be, as gentle as possible, but you're going to have to give a little bit of force to kind of get these things through. And then on the other side, you want to thread it through that slot exactly the same way. All right. And then it should look like this. You should see the Foldscope logo up there. All right, so for the next section, we're going to want to mount the lens. So remember, the lens is this part right here. So it's the tiny little disc. So this is the only time you'll use these. They give you a lot, so you have plenty of extra, but this is double-sided circular tape. So I'm going to peel one off. It's sticky on this side, but not on the other side yet. And I'm going to place it right over that circle on the lens holder. And then I'm going to kind of push it into place and peel off the backing sticker. So now what you should have is, it's sticking on the bottom because it's stuck to the lens holder, but now you should have a sticky, tape on top. And then you just want to insert the lens. And this lens is also magnetic, so it's actually just going to pop right into place. You're going to want to have the silver side down. And you quickly be able to tell if you're doing it the wrong way, because since it's magnetic, if you do it the wrong way, it won't let you put it in. So basically just let it, you kind of heard it snap, let it snap in, and then we have mounted the lens. And then just double check that this still snaps shut. Okay, you should be able to hear that snap shut. All right, so we're actually getting pretty close to done. So now we do the focus ramp. So with microscopes, since we're looking at something really, really small, it's our plane of vision. So what part of an item we're looking at is really hard to focus. So what this allows us to do is look at different levels, different layers of really small objects. So you're going to have this kind of windy thing. And what you want to do is start at the very bottom, and for every one of those perforations, make a fold and fold it towards you. And this one takes a little bit of patience, but I'm just taking this and, it's starting to look like it's starting to kind of curl up on itself. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. And just keep curling it towards yourself. And then it's done. So now what you want to do is fold it into itself so it looks like this. So it's basically let it go in the position it wants to go, because that's how it's folded. And then you're going to have something, and you might want to kind of squish it down a little bit. But then what you'll have is our focus ramp, and you'll notice one end of the focus ramp is really thin, and the other end of the focus ramp is really thick. And I'll show you what that means here in a second. So for the next part, we're going to want to install the focus ramp. So when you're looking at it like this, so heads up, or let's see, actually let's put this on first. I found it actually to be a little bit easier to put this on first. So what we'll do is we'll put these two things right on top of each other, blue on blue. And then what you'll see is there's these little folds on the back on the top. And so what you're going to want to do is wrap those folds around. So I see I did the first one. So see how these two folds are now in front of it. Same thing with the back. And then now you have to see the Foldscope logo sticking out. And now I'll do the same thing on the bottom. And so it should look like this. And by now, what you should be able to do is place your hands over these dots and move it right and left and up and down. Usually the first time you do a Foldscope, there's still some of the perforations have jagged edges. So it's useful to just kind of give it a few, maybe like 20 up and downs and 20 side to sides to even out any of those jagged edges. All right. So for the final thing is to add the focus ramp. So if you're looking at the focus or at the Foldscope head on, you're going to want to put the focus ramp so that this little blue triangle, this triangle that starts really small and moves up, you want to have that in the lower left-hand corner. And what you're going to do is just slide it behind the lens. So slide it through this slot and behind the lens. So it's kind of hard to do this while it's not on the ground. So I'm just going to do it here first, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Now this one can be a little bit tricky. And some people prefer to do this before you attach the backing, but sometimes I've not always had that to be working out the best. All right, almost there. And again, these foldscopes do have some give, so you can be a little bit rough, but not too rough. Okay, so when you're finished with that, you should see that you have this behind the focus. So let's see, is there any other pieces on the table? I think we've got everything that we need to start. So let's first go on. So the first time you use it, since you've been touching the lens a lot, you want to clean the lens on both sides. So you have this tiny little Q-tip, and then just gently rub that tiny little aperture on, and then do the same thing on the other side. And then so that way your lens is nice and clean. And so now you're ready to start mounting slides. But before we do that, let's talk about what all these different things do. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be mounting something called a slide on the back. So remember those two arrows pointing at each other? I should say 4 arrows pointing at each other. We're going to put a slide in the back. So what a slide is a piece of glass or plastic that has a specimen or whatever you want to look at mounted to it. And we're going to place it in the back and then look at it through the lens. But before we do that, let's talk about how this works. So let's go ahead and put on an example slide. So I have a butterfly antenna, and this would be the trickiest part of the entire foldscope, is getting the slides mounted. So what you want to do is position it so that the slides go between the arrows on each side. So as you can see there on the top, I have placed the glass slide between the arrows. So there's an arrow above the slide and an arrow below the slide. And then you want to thread it through and then do the exact same thing on the other side. And so now we have this. Now, one thing you can notice is that there's sort of a clear circle, and you'll notice that circle isn't really lining up with the lens very well. So what that circle is that's the glue where the specimen is mounted, in this case, a butterfly antenna. So this is where these things come into place. So you move this left, right, or up, down to manage, to try to find the exact same, or try to cover it directly over the slide. So I'll try to do this backwards. There we go. So now it looks like it's pretty much directly over the slide. It's good to look at where your sample is on the slide. You should be able to see something faint on the slide, so you'll be able to match it up exactly where it needs to go. And then so once it's in the proper place, just kind of smooth everything down, and then you snap that back into place, or snap this into place, and that helps keep the slide where it needs to be. And now you're ready to look. So so there's several ways to look at this. I'm going to go through the simplest to start with is just looking at it with your eye. So here is where you're going to be looking through. If you wear glasses, it's much better to take your glasses off, and you hold it up and get it really close to your eye. Now, if you don't see any light coming through, you probably need to check to make sure that your stage is set and that you have a clear view from all of these apertures. And the best way to look at this is looking at it in the sky, but don't look at it in the sun. So just in a blue sky, holding it up to the sky. And you might be able to see something fuzzy. If you can't find it, you're going to want to move it around a little bit. Eventually, you'll land on your specimen, and it might look really blurry. So that's where the focus ramp comes in. So the focus ramp here, you're going to move left or right, and it'll change how far the lens is away from the specimen. So if you have a really big specimen, you want the lens to be really far away. If you have a really tiny, something that's just like a sliver or a hair, you're going to want the lens to be really close to the specimen. So in this case, this is a butterfly antenna, so I'm going to move the slide all the way down. If it was something bigger, you can always go back and forth. And you also notice that there's numbers on all these places. So if you can always track, like let's say you've made a slide of a leaf, you could measure, okay, this leaf is at 0.2 inches, or yeah, 0.2 inches or whatever. And then so once it gets into place, you should be able to clearly see your specimen. And it might take a little bit of fiddling around to make sure that it's lining up in the right spot. And And there we go. So don't despair if you have to take time to fiddle around with the focus, fiddle around with the sliding back and forth. Just make sure to double check. Always, make sure that your slide is lined up, and then the specimen part is right where it needs to be. And so I can show you an example where, so here's a slide where hopefully you can see this, but there's the circle, but the specimen slide is just this tiny little kind of hair-like thing. So this is a grasshopper antenna. So when you have it in the slide, you're going to want to make sure that that grasshopper antenna is right over where the light is coming through. And once the light's coming through, all you have to do is put it up, look in the light, and then adjust focus until it comes into sharp clarity. Another way to look at this is using, if you have a phone, so a phone with a camera on it. So I have a phone here, and what you would do is you notice that there is one more magnet. The other thing that you can do is tape this magnet over the camera lens hole. So you just put tape over it, and then it will snap right onto the, so if this was taped, it would snap right onto the phone, and then you can use your phone to look at the different objects. Another great tool to use too is the flashlight function on your phone. So if you have flashlight function on your phone, what you can do is just do the opposite, or where you would shine the light through the scope. And what this does is this only works in very dark areas. But what you would do is display this, and it will actually be a projection on a wall, but it has to be very dark for you to be able to see it. And it really just acts like a projector in a movie theater. So not all of you will have prepared slides. And if you don't, that's okay, because that's where these things come in. Oh, and by the way, I should mention you also have a sticker in here that gives a fold scope identifying number. So you can use this number. You can go to their website, which we'll put up later, and there's a section on your fold scope where it says ID sticker. And you can just put your ID sticker there, and then you can go on the website and get some cool tips about other things you can do, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So let's say you don't have prepared slides, and not a lot of people may want to work with class slides. The fold scope comes equipped with tools to make your own slides. And so we're going to go back to our cutout sheet, and there should be 4 of these with 2 slots in them. And so what you're going to do is take out 2 of them, and then you're going to use this. So you'll notice that there's all these little kind of circular dots. So what you're going to do, and looks like you have 24, so you can make 24 different slides with these, is you're going to peel off one of these slide mounts, and then it's just going to be a single-sided sticker. And then you're going to want to place it over one of these slide slots. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now you can put anything you want on this. A good thing to start with is just to push it on your shirt, and then you can look at the cotton fibers that are on your shirt. Somewhere around here, I had a leaf. So you can even do things like leaves. So you can press it onto the leaf and then pull away. And oftentimes it will leave some of the leaf tissue. If it doesn't, that's okay. You can just take a tiny little sample and press it onto the sticker like that. And so now you place one more on top of it like this. So you have 2 of them right next together. And then you just put it in your fold scope exactly like you did the other slide. And so I will remove my butterfly slide. And then to remove it, you just slide it out. Again, it's going to take a little bit of jimmying to get that out. And then so what you want is, there is still going to be a sticky side. So the sticky side that the leaf is on, And so what you want to have is the sticky side facing towards the lens. So here the sticky side is the side facing you. And then you're just going to want to slide that in just between those two arrows, just like on the other slide. And then sometimes the arrows kind of get underneath each other, and you're going to have to just use a little bit of force to make sure that gets in there. And then so I have it started, and then I'm just going to thread it through the rest of the way. And then now you can see that it's mounted, but it's not in the right position. So that's why I'm going to be holding this and moving it right and left to get it in the right position and up and down. So it's going to be a little bit hard for me to see this. Let's see, there we go. So now the lens is directly over the leaf. I can snap this on and it should stay in place. You should still be able to see light through it. And if you have thick material, so a really thick leaf, it might be a little bit more difficult. You might have to look maybe at like a light in your home or something like that. So remember, you want something that light can penetrate. And then since this is a bigger leaf, I'm going to move my focus back a little bit more. And then there it is coming into clarity. So what kind of things? So you have 24 of these to make, and I don't think you can really reuse the stickers, but you can definitely reuse these slide templates. So some things that I would recommend doing is using them for if you find a flower and you notice that the pollen that's on top of the in a lot of flowering plants, you can dust pollen onto the sticky side. You can look at flower petals. You can look at leaves. You can even look at take a sample of, say, pond water and let it dry on the sticky side, and then you can see what kind of microorganisms that were in that sample of pond water. So finally, I think that, and then the last thing is if you're going to be inside or you're not going to be outside, it might be useful to get something like this, or if you have anything like this. So this is just I think you can get this for about $1. It's an LED light where you can use it to shine through the back. So you would hold it to the back, and especially for like the thicker leaves or the thicker materials, it really imparts a perfect amount of light to see some of those, those bigger items that might not be easily seen. So besides that, so that's everything you need to do to get started on exploring the micro worlds. I'm going to be here on the chat taking any questions for a while, and so feel free to send me any questions. I do want to plug the Foldscope website. So foldscope.com you can register your Foldscope there, and then you can also they have a lot of different tips, different ways of using your Foldscope, and you can also buy things like this. I believe this was $9. And this is a set of 30 glass slides. And in this case, it's plants and insects. And then I think there's an animal tissue one, and also like a bacteria and microinvertebrate one. So please stick around for any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. But until then, please go have fun with your Foldscope.